By the way, TSA charges congressman with violating federal law for exposing security breaches. See, the bureaucracy saying, we're coming after you, pal. Just like that whistleblower on NSA stealing money. They indicted his hind end. I mean, are you starting to get how dangerous this government is? But that's good. Let them start shoving. Congress might actually wake up and behave like patriots once they realize the tyranny. Wayne Paul is a CPA and brother of Representative Ron Paul. Wayne, of course, appears in the Obama Deception and discusses the Social Security scam and the Federal Reserve and how a country is bankrupt. He did that 3 years ago. We interviewed him 3 years ago, put the Obama Deception out 2 years ago. And we are under emergency powers, and the Secretary of the Treasury is really in control of the country. And I want to get this guy who's been for close to 50 years on the front lines exposing the private Federal Reserve. The family are all just great people now. Senator Rand Paul, another chip off the old block, is doing a great job in the Senate. And they really are the first family in liberty in this country, and we can only salute them. That's why COINTELPRO attacks them. Wayne, it is so good to have you here with us, my friend.
I'm glad to be here.
Wayne, I want to get into the War Powers Act and the fact that we have been under martial law since 1933, economic dictatorship since 1913, and we're now seeing the fruits of that. And we even saw Obama last week say, I'll just use war powers that were used by Lincoln, or well, I guess it'd be after Lincoln was killed in Reconstruction, Ulysses S. Grant, against the Congress if they don't raise the debt ceiling. But before we go there, I tell you, the chickens are coming home to roost. You're in the Obama Deception breaking down hyperinflation and what would happen under the banker takeover. So toot your horn, talk about that, and then let's get into who really runs this country.
Well, as you can see, the people you and I know of every day that listen to your radio show and exist on a daily basis have recognized and understand much more today about the Federal Reserve and the loss of the value of dollars than ever in the history of my life. It's fascinating and interesting to see how many people are now aware of things, and all of a sudden people will come up to me and say, you know, your brother may have been right. Isn't that amazing? So, yes, it's a major problem, and people daily lose their homes. People daily are looking for work. Yet we have an administration and a Congress that doesn't seem to want to help.
Well, their consolidation is going well. Wayne, let's get into the Federal Reserve, what it really is, and the fact that we've been under administrative receivership for a very long time. Let's cut right to the chase for people and break down the emergency powers and the Secretary of the Treasury and what's really going on.
Well, as you know, the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913 around Christmas time, and there were three people on the floor of the House that passed the Federal Reserve Act. That allowed the United States government to turn over all their money to the Federal Reserve, and in return, the Federal Reserve says, we'll loan you all the money you need. And that's the way it's been in operation. In 1933, Roosevelt declared the United States bankrupt. They no longer had any more money coming in than was going out, so they were bankrupt, and the Federal Reserve says, well, wait a minute. What else are you going to pledge as collateral on the debt? And guess what we had by 1936?
Social Security.
It's called Social Security. And each person got a number under the disguise of saying, we're going to create a fund for your retirement so that you can supplement that. But the truth of the matter was a mechanism to control the collateral that the Federal Reserve wanted, which is you and I and our ability to earn a living. And that still exists today.
And we are a country ruled by the big six mega banks who have now brought us to rack and ruin. Did you see Tiny Tim Geithner, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before last, admit that, quote, this is going to be the worst time that we've ever experienced in our lives and isn't going to end for a long time. That's a quote. I mean, I thought we were in the middle of a great boom time thanks to QE1 and QE2.
Well, unfortunately, we know neither of those have worked, and any addition to the debt is only going to make it worse. And the disguise or the noise coming out is just, oh, well, since I'm on Social Security, I might not get Social Security this next month, or we won't be able to pay our soldiers. All of that is smoke and mirrors. I can't imagine our government not paying our soldiers and not paying our elderly, and under the threat of our current president saying that that might happen. I think that's a bunch of baloney.
Well, it was always meant to hold us hostage, and now you've got more than half the public either on some type of government assistance or money taken out of their checks for decades being held hostage, or companies surviving on government contracts. They've got us exactly where they want us.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Things are going to get worse before it gets better. We have not seen the bottom of our problems. Our problems are still in front of us. And we as a people, I believe, understand that problem much more today than we ever did. And it's fascinating because I think even our Republican National Party recognize that Ron's right. But they only recognize it in terms of how are we going to keep him out of the platform and out of the nomination. And they're doing it by deceptive means because they cannot attack him on words and phrases because Ron's always told the truth. He's always been right, and people recognize that. So they can't attack him on issues because he's right. So if they can't attack him on issues, how are they going to do it?
Well, they're ignoring him. They're fixing polls. They're ignoring it when he wins big straw polls by huge majorities in places like New Hampshire. And they're also talking like him on the surface. Michelle Bachmann, the IRS enforcer, Al Gore's former chief of staff in Texas, Mr. Liberal Pointy Boots, Rick Perry. I mean, they are really getting a gaggle of artificial, counterfeit Ron Pauls ready, who as soon as they get in office, of course, are going to continue to serve their masters. I mean, Rick Perry is a Bilderberg minion. It doesn't get any more obvious than this. We don't see Ron Paul invited to Bilderberg.
No, I think you've hit on two main issues. One is we as a nation have to be very careful as conservatives as to which Tea Party group we're going to listen to. The National Republican Party has taken over the name of the Tea Party and spewing out their own liberal agenda in a conservative way, and they're trying to dilute our conservative vote by throwing in as many people as they can into this Republican primary coming up. And they're holding Perry in the wings, saying that he's going to be the saving grace for the Republican Party. And I'm telling you, he's worse. He's done more harm to the state of Texas than the Bushes have ever done.
Yeah, they're selling him as the Deus Ex, the guy that's going to save everybody at the last minute. I mean, this is, well, I mean, talk about it. He's doubled in his 10 years as governor the budget. Yep. He's passed all these new taxes on businesses, really a state income tax and the franchise tax.
Right.
Forced inoculations, NAFTA superhighways, Al Gore's footstool. I knew from insiders he was always planning to run and said that over a year ago. I talked to Fox News people and others, that met with him privately, and he had that fake pledge he wouldn't run, and then he broke, and now he's looking at breaking the pledge. He always meant to. It's this whole fake, reluctant, act. And you know what? Republicans are going to elect him. They love Al Gore at the end of the day. They love being conned. And that's what, Wayne, they don't want something real like Ron Paul because he doesn't have the fancy hair. They like twinkle toes. They like the effeminate Perry. And they're going to get it. They want to be slaves, some of them.
Well, again, I go back to the point that they can't discuss issues with Ron because they know he's right. So rather than discuss issues and to bring them up so that the American people can have a clear-cut choice, they just as soon undercut them by throwing these other people out as conservatives so that the conservatives get confused and think a Perry or a Bachmann would do a better job and be more as conservative, and that's just not the case.
Talk about your brother, Ron Paul. Well, you know, before we get into Ron and his presidential run, that regardless we win because he's educating people, but he's in the number 1, number 2, or number 3 slot, depending on which straw poll or national poll. The media is trying to run the hoax that, oh, he can't win. It's the contrary. He's got 10 times the power he did 3-4 years ago because so much of what he talked about is unfortunately manifested, and he is the thinking person's candidate. But let's look at the stealth candidate, Perry, who is designed to knock Ron Paul out. Let's look at the real enemy here, and he's going to team up with one of the ladies, whether it was going to be Palin, it may be Bachmann now. You heard it here first years ago, folks. Watch. We know what we're talking about, so people listen. Let's talk about, I mean, I mentioned some of the things, but horrible for Texas. He's always saying Texas is great because of him. He wants us to believe the sun comes up because of him. How has Perry been bad for Texas?
Well, there are 3 major issues that I look at. One of the major ones is the TTC, or the Trans-Texas Corridor. He has done more to confiscate private property, to build toll roads, and then to lease these toll roads to foreign companies to run. And they say that that deal is dead. It's just under another name. It's not dead. The second item that bothers me is our education system. Under Perry, we rank 36th in the nation in high school graduation rates. We rank 49th in verbal SAT scores, 47th in literacy, and 46th in the average math scores. We've lost our education edge, and it is under his administration. But the last thing that I think is worse than ever is his stance on illegal immigration.
Oh, yeah, he claims he's fighting it, but tell folks, he was the guy that got sanctuary cities through and in-state tuition for illegals.
And there is a relative solution that could aid Texas in their budget problems and still be compassionate to illegals, but to turn around and do something about it. And all you need to do is look in other countries and other locations as to how they handle immigration. And if it was done in Texas, it would be fantastic for Texas. It would be fantastic for the illegals. And it would be fantastic for the United States. It's a very simple solution. He won't even look at it.
Now, we don't want to do what Mexico does. They put you in a slave camp for a year. I mean, of course, but then they say our borders have got to be wide open, but they've got some of the strongest in the world after North Korea. Right. What is your solution that other countries have used?
Well, every person that's in this country illegally, if they had 25 days to register, when they register, they bring in $1,500 of their money, but they come in with a sponsor who pays $1,000. That $2,500 is put into a special education fund to teach the illegal how to become a United States citizen.
But they don't want that. They want to keep them in their little subdivisions and use them as political weapons. Stay